You know, sometimes you meet someone and they remind you of what it's possible to achieve in the world, no matter how small, because just by being alive, they inspire. So I'm going to start this morning with a story about someone just like that. And then I'm going to briefly present 3 milestones through which Rotary is quietly but very, very effectively bringing about change in the world. A change that you might not even be aware of, but one that is saving lives. So to my story. Last year, in April, I met a 4-year-old girl called Tatiana. She lives in Moldova and was born with Down syndrome, which in Tatiana's case can be managed at home. But she didn't have a home. When she was born, she was removed from her parents. The system in Moldova, as in many other countries in the world, has preyed upon vulnerable families and especially on vulnerable children. Because hoovering children like Tatiana into orphanages creates jobs. Tatiana's parents protested, of course, so she was moved to an orphanage across the country to make it difficult for them to reach her, not least because of the cost of the bus fares. The more they protested, the more the system worked to dislocate them from Tatiana. They lost contact, and Tatiana lived the next 4 years of her life confined to a cot. As a consequence, she was not allowed to develop the ability to walk nor to speak. Her minor act of defiance was to regurgitate the liquid food she was fed through a bottle. By the age of 4, she weighed well under 10 kilograms. Now, Hope and Homes for Children stepped in, and we were able to find her a foster family, an older couple, experienced parents. My colleagues had told me that Tatiana would almost certainly have died, probably within weeks, had we not stepped in. So I was really surprised when I walked into the kitchen of a new home to see her not only standing, but actually dancing. Her foster mum and dad had been encouraging and supporting her to learn to walk and discovered that she loved music. It was an incredible transformation. 1 year later, and I've just heard literally within the last week, the amazing news that Tatiana is now learning to speak. She can verbalize basic sounds. Her life has not only been saved, it's been transformed. She is as mischievous as she is happy. She's a brave little girl, and her courage is fueled by the love and care of her foster parents. Tatiana really is an inspiration, and that leads me to the first of the 3 milestones that I want to talk briefly about. Realizing responsibility. How is this linked to inspiration? Well, confronting our responsibility to the rest of the world, to humanity, is the key to unlocking inspiration around us. As a prospective Rotary scholar some 26 years ago, I remember being interviewed by the panel at District 1220. Now, these were no-nonsense Rotarians, and I remember very well being told, "Young man, if we pick you, all we can do is set you up to walk out of that door and go out into the world. It's your responsibility and yours alone to be inspired by it and to harness that inspiration for good." I was being challenged and held accountable at the same time. And I was very fortunate to be awarded that scholarship. Several months later, I was in Tanzania studying wildlife management. I'm very proud to have studied at an African college and to have been taught and inspired by Africans about their wildlife. And I would never have had that opportunity without Rotary. I'm deeply grateful for that. And I'm grateful for two reasons. Thank you. Firstly, I learned that people mostly already realize what their responsibilities are. They don't need telling. The communities we worked with as part of our studies wanted to embrace their responsibility for successfully managing the wildlife around them. But they needed help. They needed help to overcome the structures that were denying them access to education, access to healthcare, and means of representing their own interests to fulfill that responsibility on their own terms, just like you and I would seek to do. And that lesson has stayed with me. Secondly, I met my wife at the college, another person who inspires me. And we have 4 children, all of whom inspire me too. So much inspiration. But isn't that what Rotary is about? Harnessing inspiration to encourage service to humanity and getting many people who recognize that responsibility to humanity to undertake small acts that collectively change the world. The International Scholarship Program is part of that. I'm going to fast forward now. From Tanzania, I worked on development projects in many African countries, and after 10 years or so, stepped up to run a humanitarian agency called War Child. I was there for another 7 to 8 years, and then I joined Hope and Homes for Children as the Chief Executive Officer. So, back to Titania and to our second milestone. I'm going to tell you now about Rotary's best kept secret. While making incredible progress toward the eradication of polio, Rotary has also raised several $1 million that have enabled Hope and Homes for Children to develop a way of eliminating the confinement of children in orphanages. Now, why do we want to close orphanages? In fact, why do we want to close every orphanage on the planet? Well, the answer is because orphanages really do confine children. Look at these photos. Iron doors with padlocks to lock children into their bedrooms. We go into many orphanages where the windows are bars. They live in sanitized and soulless conditions, and cots serve as mini prisons in which children gnaw at the bars just to pass the time. When we go into a baby unit in an orphanage, whether it's in Romania or Rwanda, Sudan or Ukraine, it's typical to see row upon row of cots, sometimes with 2 or more children in each one. But what's really disturbing is the silence, because the babies are not picked up. They're not cuddled. They've learned not to cry. Learned not to cry. This has a profound physical impact on them, because when a baby cries and reaches out for attention and is not responded to, there's a buildup of toxic stress in its brain. This impairs their neurological development. And you can see the consequences in this scan. The good news is that with proper love and care, a baby can quickly overcome such impairments. There really is a science to substantiate the importance of love in a child's life. Isn't that amazing? Now, here are 3 statistics. 37% of children in orphanage care experience extreme violence. And we really are talking about extreme violence. We have seen cases where a young boy has been doused in petrol and set on fire to discipline him. For every 3 months that a child under 3 spends in an orphanage, they lose 1 month of physical growth. That's stunting. And mortality rates can be catastrophic. We've seen them as high as 70% in some of those orphanages. In fact, they're not orphanages, they're abattoirs. Children are being confined to these places in almost every country in the world. There are 8 million children, in fact, held in orphanages. And it's unnecessary. And here's why. More than 80% of all children in orphanages are not actually orphans. Most of them have at least one biological parent still alive. Nearly all of them have extended family. With just a little support, we've shown that these families can provide the care and protection that a child needs to have a happy and healthy childhood. And this is our responsibility. Nearly every country in the world has signed up to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child. This convention spells out our obligation to ensure that children grow up in a family environment, not in an orphanage. So while the case for orphanages has been unequivocally smashed by independent research and by the experience of organizations like Hope and Homes for Children, the underlying reason we are seeking to eliminate them is because children are telling us that what they want is a family to grow up in. And here's the rub. Family-based care, whether it involves reintegration with the birth family, foster care or adoption, is more cost-effective than orphanage care. That means we all benefit from a reduction in the bill. So how do we go about eliminating the confinement of children in orphanages around the world? Well, that brings us to the final milestone, the eradication of institutional care of children. Eradication. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So the first of these is political will in our 4-point plan. Hope and Homes for Children develops the evidence needed to persuade governments and local authorities that institutional care of children is damaging and that family-based care is far more beneficial. Because if we have political will, we can change whole countries. For example, when we began our work in Romania, more than 100,000 children were confined to state orphanages. With the help of Rotary, we've reduced that to less than 9,000. We're over 90% on track to eliminate orphanages there. Over 30% on track in Rwanda, again with the support of Rotary. And we're making great strides in many more countries. Political will is crucial because we want to ensure that governments face up to their responsibilities and put in place sustainable family-based care arrangements for all children. Secondly, we build the technical know-how of local authorities to put in place the prevention services that actually stop the separation of children from their families in the first place. We help to develop those services to reintegrate children who might already be confined in orphanages and then provide them with family-based care and other alternatives, but always in a family situation. Third, we work with local organizations to scale up these services and in a way that's locally responsive and locally relevant. We don't want to impose a one-size-fits-all solution. Every child, every family, every community is different, with different challenges and needs. Fourth, to quote the bard, all roads lead back to Caesar, money. Although family-based care is more cost-effective than orphanage care, making the transition from one to the other incurs additional costs. Now, we deal with this by leveraging structural funds from institutional donors like the EU, as well as from government aid agencies, whether that's the British government, the American government, the Japanese or Korean government. And that means when Rotary raises money for our work, we're able to multiply its value by a factor of 12 or more, usually more. And we've actually calculated the cost of global success. I call this costing success. And I'm going to very quickly take you through it. There are 8 million children confined to orphanages globally. Now, using our model, it costs about $1,500 to place a child sustainably into family-based care. Now, you multiply those two together, and that gives us a $12 billion problem. But if we're leveraging funds at a ratio of 1 to 12, we have a cake of 13 slices. Then our slice, Open Homes for Children, is just $923 million. And if we spread that cost over 30 years, we bring that down to 31 million a year. And that feels achievable, because currently, Open Homes for Children is turning over about 11 million. So like you, we need to grow. And in order to make that growth successful, we need $15 million. So here's the challenge. If everyone in this room pledged just $1 per month for just 1 year, and asked each of their club to match this with $4 a month, we'd raise that $15 million, just like that. Bigger, bolder, better. And as a result, we'd position Open Homes for Children to complete the elimination of orphanages globally. Now, these calculations, the monetary value of $1 per month, are not mere abstract figures. They relate directly to the lives of children like Tatiana. So on behalf of Tatiana, on behalf of Open Homes for Children and all my colleagues, and on behalf of my own family, thank you. What you do is amazing. You generate inspiration around the world, and in doing so, you've helped us to save the lives of thousands of children. So really, thank you.